what's up, people? Hope you're well. Today, we're going to be talking about the Apple Watch Series 9, which I've had for just over a month now, well over a month, and my experiences with the recently released double tap gesture that they've updated the software with recently. And I'm going to give you my opinions on that. But first of all, a lot of my watchers are sort of new people to my channel. I have some subscribers, which I'm really grateful for. But when you watch this video, please comment, subscribe. Literally like something like 98 or high 90s of people that watch the video aren't subscribers. So if you could subscribe, that'd be great. Anyway, so I'm going to get into the double tap. So when I got the watch, as the rest of you also would have got the watch who own it, the double tap gesture, which is spoken about, wasn't released in the watch. It's been recently released, and I'm going to tell you now, I don't like it. And there's two reasons why. One is that it often doesn't work on my watch. I don't know why, but a lot of times it simply doesn't work. Two is that when it does work, it's very limited. To me, when you double tap, like I can double tap now, and it barely worked. So I'm not loving it, to be honest with you. And I would hope that it works at a more deeper level with the apps. Currently, it's very high level. It only takes you through the app drawer, and it sort of does stuff like starts and stops timers, and it will sort of allow you to stop and start music and phone calls and things like that. I think it does the music. I'm not sure I've tested it out with that yet, but I have tested it out with a lot of different apps, and I found that a lot of times it just simply doesn't. It'll have that shaky hand thing at the top, and it's to say that it doesn't work. So those two reasons, I'm not a big fan of it. One, it barely works. Two, it only works at a high level, i.e. it will only take you to the first layer of an app, or it only let you do one or two, make one thing in an app, one or two things, start, stop, etc., etc. It's far too basic. I would prefer if it was like you had to do your fist like that or something, or there was some other gesture you could use that would sort of, you can program it to do different things. So if they could do something like that, you can maybe clench your fist or do your fingers like that, and it does the way it works now. It does different things. That would be great. But for now, it's far too basic, so I'm not a big fan of it. It doesn't work very well with activity. In fact, it doesn't work in activity. I would have liked to, from my understanding, it just doesn't work. It just has that shaky hand thing in activity, and I use activity a lot, and it just seems like a last minute bolted onto the software last minute for people to use, basically to sell the watch. Basically, they've added it not as a serious thing. They've just done it so that you can it'll prompt people who were on the fence to get the Series 9. Me, I wasn't on the fence. I had a really old watch. The battery was dying. I was debating whether to replace the battery and keep it for another year, which would have cost me £85, or to just get a new watch with all the new features. And it was a kind of, this wouldn't have swayed it for me at all, and it wasn't even there on release. So my opinion, double tap on the watch, rubbish. I barely use it. I've only used it to test it out and for novelty. I have no use for it. It feels unnatural. Doing that feels unnatural. I never do that in real life. You might clench your hand to pick something up or whatever. It's better if they did it with that gesture, because you use that gesture a lot. It feels more natural. Who does that? Rubbish. So that's my opinion. So next, I want to talk about battery life on the watch. Battery life is decent. Had it for over a month. I've updated the software at least once or twice currently. Battery life is decent, about a day and a half. I wish that the battery life was longer. I wish that the battery life lasted maybe 3 days. I think at this point in the watch series nine iterations of the watch, you'd hope that on the standard watch it would have at least 3 days. But I couldn't bring myself to buy an ultra because it was just seemed a bit too pricey. Seemed a bit too pricey for an electronic watch that's going to be old hat in about 2 3 years. It's going to be something that you're going to look at it like it's a relic. So to pay that amount of money for that just didn't seem right to me. And the watch is just way too bulky, way too bulky. It's like looking at another phone screen or something. I don't want that. So yeah, typically with battery life, um, I get, so in the mornings I usually have about 35 to 45% battery on average, and that's with me not doing stuff like phone calls or doing loads of activity on the activity app. Um, I mean, I work out, try and work out regularly, and I find that um, using the activity app, maybe listening to a bit of music, leaving my phone at home, using the cellular a little bit for music and stuff like that, the battery always lasts 100%. The only time it doesn't is if you have a really long phone call and it absolutely kills your battery on the watch. But overall, yeah, I wish battery life was better, but it lasts about a day and a half. So I also want to talk about the look of the watch. So yeah, I really like the look of the watch. I have the black version with the graphite Milanese loop, which I really like. It looks really slick. Looks quite smart. Goes with casual clothes and casual settings, and smart clothes and smart settings, and it sort of blends into both. So yeah, it just looks really nice, stealthy, high end, high quality. It just has that look. Um, and yeah, I'm happy with the look of the watch. In terms of watch faces, I have got a few saved, quite a few saved now. And I've boiled them down to the ones that I like the most right now and the complications that I found most useful right now. I'm always sort of experimenting with the new the different watch faces and complications, but I've found good amount that I currently like. Um, but I will say one of my favorite things about the Apple Watch, 100% one of my favorite things is, and I didn't expect this, totally unexpected. I thought one of my favorite things would be something, some tool on the watch, like, oh, it's got this type of timer, or I don't know what, I'm just making up stuff, but it's got some feature on there on the software, some tool on the software that I find really helpful or whatever. No, the thing that I like the most, or one of the things I like the most on the watch, is the Snoopy watch face. Now, if you're cut from a certain cloth, you're of a certain vintage, you will remember the Peanuts cartoon with Snoopy and Charlie Brown and all the other characters. And I remember watching that when I was a kid, and it just reminds me of my childhood. It brings back a bit of nostalgia, before you had to pay bills. Um, before, it just reminds you of the good of it's just nostalgic, and it just makes you feel good every time I look at the watch face. I'm sure there's people who about my age who will remember that cartoon, and it will bring back loads of nostalgia. Um, there seems to be like endless animations on the watch face, and it's almost like watching a 5 second cartoon, or however long the animation is for, every time you look at your wrist. And it's just like sort of like almost like nostalgia, but very like art and nostalgia, and just feel good vibes and all that with it. So it's just like, to me, it's just it's just really calming, and it's just one of the best watch faces it is the best watch face on the watch, I believe. Or one of the best, should I say. Um, and yeah, it's just impossible. It's impossible not to like the watch face, in my opinion. And yeah, it's great. Well done, Apple. Um, I wanted to talk about something really quickly as well, which I think is a good avenue, perhaps, for uh, when companies make electronic watches to sort of. I think it's a good idea to sort of have an element of the watch which just makes you feel good. So, a lot of times these watches are used as tools, right? If you put like artwork or some nostalgic stuff, or something that's just not based on tools or how many steps you did today or whatever, it's just something that just makes you feel good when you raise your wrist. That's a great avenue, man, because they've also got another watch face on there, and I can't remember the name of it, but every time you press your the watch face, it's got a face that kind of morphs each time, and it has like different color combinations and stuff. But each time you press the watch face, it's like a portrait that sort of changes each time, and I think that's really cool, especially when the watch is in sleep mode. It just sort of turns into this kind of how can I put it, really sort of sophisticated looking piece of art on your wrist. So yeah, I think that is a good avenue to go down if you're going to make one of those watches. And yeah, I just think it's a good idea. Um, but yeah, overall, I'm happy with the watch. I don't like the double tap feature. I think it's a complete gimmick. I have no use for it. It barely works. It only works on surface level if it works, and it's something that they added for people that were on the fence about getting the watch. Or they added it so there's an extra feature, but it's definitely doesn't touch any of the other features on the watch. If you're coming from an old watch like I did, which was a Series 4. Um, but yeah, that's just my opinion overall. If you're wondering my opinions, you've got them now on the watch, and I hope, for what it's worth, it could help you in your decision. There are other good watches out there, like the Garmin watch that I was thinking about getting. Um, and yeah, other stuff too, other watches you might like, mechanical watches as well. But yeah, overall, all good. Um, yeah, Series 9 is good overall.